Today's guest is the founder and CEO of the Pink Mentor Network. Stacy Cassio has worked in many different industries, including insurance investigation, engineering management, and manufacturing new product development. In 2017, Stacy founded the Pink Mentor Network, Charlotte's first female mentorship community. In just a short time, her company has been nominated for several awards, including the 2019 Athena Leadership Award and the 2019 Mecklenburg Times Phenom Award. Stacy is dedicating her life to reshaping how women seek and obtain. Can I read that one again? Stacy is dedicating her life to reshaping how women seek and obtain mentorship. Her model has embraced and empowered hundreds of Charlotte women by teaching them there has never been a woman we couldn't learn from. Please welcome today's guest, Stacy Cassio. One more time. Please welcome today's guest, Stacy Cassio.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
This is such a relevant conversation because everywhere I go, Stacy, people say, you need to find a mentor. And we know that, and it seems scary and unobtainable. Thank you for helping us learn how to find a mentor. And what brought you to this place where you realized how important this was to females?
Exactly what you're talking about. So just knowing that I needed someone's experience to help me get to my next level, but not knowing how to ask for it. So when I started the mentorship community, Pink Mentor Network, it was really seeing all the women and the members struggle with that. How do we find a mentor? It's unstructured. It's a little awkward. How do you know who to ask? It becomes difficult. And so what this model does is it tells you who to look for at what pain points in your career or business, and then how to grow that from someone who will take your calls to someone who will open the door for you or bring you to the table. So it's really about giving women a platform and a framework in order to find mentorship.
There are so many different areas to dive into, but let's start with the first one that we don't want to talk about, our pain. So how do we recognize the pain we need to address first to help us elevate our success in both our personal life and our work life?
Yes. So the whole platform came from just watching the patterns of the mistakes women were making with mentors. And once I was able to see the same thing happening, no matter what the career was, what the business was, I was able to identify the pain that the woman was causing her to look for somebody more experienced. And those pain points traditionally are when we start something new. So we are looking for an example of what success looks like when we start new. So that's one of them. Another one is when you want to be an expert in an area. You want to stand next to somebody who's a trailblazer in that industry in order to build your own reputation. Something that we were talking about before we started rolling here is you definitely want an innovator as a mentor because you want to be able to bring something new to what you're doing and stay relevant. So that type of mentor is called a horizon mentor. So there were 6 clear places in a woman's career where she needed mentorship, and there was pain related to that. So those are a couple of them.
Yeah, no, let's go to the first one. We'll pick a couple of these. So the new person, you're new to an industry or you're wanting to start something new. Do you recommend that we find a mentor that's already doing what we want to do but are a few steps ahead of us? Or could it be in any industry?
Yeah, so I think that there is power in both. So finding someone that is a couple steps ahead of you in your industry is great, but what might happen is they may not want to share the secrets. So I have found that it's actually easier to find something that's similar. So if you are going into consulting of, like, say, leadership consulting, you may look at someone who's doing a different type of consulting and kind of emulate what they did, but bring it to your industry because that brings innovation. That also, when you meet with that mentor, they're going to tell you everything because they're not viewing you as competition. So having both, if you can find somebody in your industry, it's great, but it's much more difficult to find somebody that will help you get there.
That makes so much sense because I love the idea that innovation often happens outside of the industry that we are in.
100%.
And when the person is outside of our industry, there's no competition. So you can collaborate on a deeper level.
And oftentimes you'll be able to like refer clients or customers because you notice that the person is growing and their pain point has changed. So it's even a deeper relationship than mentorship at some levels.
So here's the real question.
Go for it.
I've needed many mentors in my time. When I moved back to New York 5 years ago, I was reinventing myself, learning how to write a book, how to speak on big stages. How do we ask someone if they'll be our mentor? It's the hardest thing to do, I believe.
100%. And what I hope that this platform will do for women is take the challenge of asking away and actually empower us to ask and bring somebody along with us. Because I truly believe that mentorship, bringing somebody along on your journey, is actually a legacy. Like you're giving them a gift of coming along into your success. And so when we have that mind shift of, I'm not burdening them with my baggage, rather, I'm giving them the gift of my vision and they're going to help me get there. It becomes like this partnership instead of this coaching relationship.
I think that's really hard for us as females to do the ask. We're really good at giving.
100%.
And so is there any way that you have found in your model when we're approaching someone that we hope will mentor us, a way to often give a give of something we can offer them before the ask of, can you help us?
Yes. So I like to say that humility opens the door, but boldness walks through. So the idea that you can humbly ask someone who you admire, and it's actually, if you go to them and say, I really admire you for what you have done, and I have a quick question. Would you mind sharing 15 minutes have 15 minutes for a phone call at some point on a commute? And most of the time, they'll say yes.
Can we jump into that, Stacy? Because I think it's so powerful
Yeah.
that you said a phone call on a commute.
Yes.
So that it's
Give
not
them-
taking up their time. So can you give advice to the listeners never to use the word, I'd like to pick your brain?
Oh, never use that word. I hate that term. And in fact, I will never respond to anyone who says, I want to pick your brain. I will ask them, what do you want to pick my brain about? Because I may not be the person that has that answer. And I might be able to introduce them to someone who would, but never turn to somebody and say, I want to pick your brain. So one of the challenges that I saw women making mistake with mentors was they were showing up with their baggage. So they were showing up with the painful parts of their career and dumping them in front of someone they deemed more experienced. And the mentor, which is a free relationship, like there is nothing but just gratification that you're helping someone. And if that's not in you, then you're never going to be a good mentor. But when we show up with our vision for what is next in our career and business in front of someone who's already been there, more than likely they're going to want to help us.
I love the languaging that you use. You were very specific on how much time you're asking the potential mentor for, and also at a time when they're already doing something. So it's not like they're taking 50 minutes out of their already busy day. I've never heard that before, like on a commute.
Yeah. Well, that way they can look at their schedule and they're like thinking of their days. Okay, this would be a great time for me to have a conversation with you. So you're giving them some options. You're also telling them the duration of the conversation. So one challenge for mentors is they've got busy, giant lives and they've got so much on their plate. They really don't have time to add another relationship to that already overburdened plate. So when we give them just a little bit, I just need 15 minutes of your whole life. Then, that's your in. And then you from there can grow the relationship.
I love that. And now you're meeting tonight with one of your mentors that you've had for 4 years,
Yes.
for the first time face to face. What was it in your life that compelled you to say, I can't do this alone. I need to work alongside or have someone show me the first steps to this next part of my life journey?
It's fascinating. I think about this a lot because, my whole passion is mentorship. So why is that? And I came from a very unconventional education. I was in college. I had zero idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I was in the Midwest at a state school. And I was trying to find like an advisor to help me figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was waiting outside of his door, and on a bulletin board, there was a sign that said, New York nannies wanted. And I was like, oh, okay, if I escape, I won't have to figure this out. So I moved from Kansas to New York at the age of 19, and I didn't know anyone. And just the idea that, or I didn't know how to do anything city. I had no idea. My hometown didn't even have a stoplight. And so I had to watch people mimic what they were doing and then do it until it authentically became my own. And my whole career, every rise moment, I was mimicking someone else until that authentically became my own. So I was choosing people in my life to get ahead. And it's really helped accelerate everything that I do in business.
I think this idea of mimicking is brilliant. And I think for many of us, we feel that it's not copying, because the unique aspect is that person you're mimicking, you're never going to be them. They're never going to be you. I feel like oftentimes in business and entrepreneurship, as women, we feel like we have to figure it out ourselves. We have to do it a unique way. We can't copy anything. Can you go a little bit more, Stacy, into this idea of mimicking something until it authentically feels like you? Because I've never heard that before, and I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, so the reason that I realized it worked for me is I never applied for a job. I was always tapped on the shoulder by a mentor, somebody who already saw something in me and said, hey, come with me. So I was like, wow, okay, so this is a way to totally bypass the front door of a business. If I could identify an individual inside the organization that I admire or respect, and then grow a relationship with them, show up to them with, hey, this is where I see my career going. When they saw those opportunities available, they said, hey, come with me. So it was fascinating to watch how mentorship really started to just help me advance.
But you also said you're showing up, Stacy, telling them what skills you have. And I've heard about this in the acting world, that often actors will go into an audition thinking the producer knows what they want, when in reality, the producer is waiting for the actor to tell us what you can give us. And you're kind of saying a similar thing in the workplace.
Absolutely. And there's the piece that we often miss. So we think that if we get some great advice from a mentor and we use it, like, that's over. And then we go back to the well and get more great advice. But there's a piece that we don't do a great job of doing, and that's reporting back how we applied whatever they invested in us. So what we invest in becomes stronger. And reporting back that I used this and it helped me get to this is so huge in getting them to grow that relationship.
I've heard so many mentors say, it's so frustrating because I give advice and then they don't do anything.
Exactly.
So I think the reporting back is just showing that you are taking action, you are listening, and the time you're putting into me, I am using it well and putting it out into the world.
100%. One of my top mentors in entrepreneurship, he's amazing. He is actually a founder of a tech company in Charlotte, where I'm from. And he told me, he was actually the first person I met when I was becoming an entrepreneur. And I just asked for a coffee with him. And I said, I'll only take this coffee. And he had no idea that I was going to latch on at the time, or else he might not have done it. But he gave me some great advice. He said, if you can recognize a pattern in yourself, then we can build a strategy on how to avoid it. So what he was talking about there is find your flow time during the day and do your creative work at that time. Well, I took his mentorship and I enhanced it because I realized I had this community of women. So if I could recognize patterns in the women, I could build a strategy, which is now the pop-up mentor model, and help them overcome that as a collective. So it's really, taking the mentorship somebody gives you, applying your experiences to it and using it to go forward.
So you talk about the pop-up mentorship model, and we have talked yesterday about we needing 6 different types of mentors and 3 levels of mentorship. This is breaking this mysterious thing called mentorship down. Yeah. Can you go a little deeper into that so that the listeners can get a better understanding of what mentorship looks like in its best iteration?
Oh, gladly. So the 3 different levels of mentorship are huge. So there are informal mentors, formal mentors, and sponsors. And let me break that down a little bit so that you know what you're looking for. Informal mentors oftentimes will give you inspiration. So you may never meet them. So a good informal mentor for me has been the Guy Raz How I Built This podcast. So I start every week listening to that podcast because it reminds me that entrepreneurship is scary as hell. And every successful entrepreneur has been in the place where I am at the beginning of this week, and I'm going to make it through. But I will probably never meet Guy Raz. Maybe I'll never meet the people. Well, that's not true. I will meet him. I just don't know when. But it's mentorship from afar, but it's inspiration to keep me focused and grounded on where I'm headed. So then the next level of mentorship are formal mentors. And formal mentors have answers to our questions, and they have been where we want to go. But they may not know us as a professional. So they only have the answers. They don't have the knowledge of us to apply it to whatever we're doing. That is a sponsor. So that's the third level of mentorship is sponsors. And we should all be looking out for sponsors because they have the experience of what we need in order to get to the next level, but they also know us as a professional. So they're able to apply that experience directly to us.
Do you recommend, Stacy, us building a relationship with a sponsor per se on a non-mentorship level to start, like getting to know them, reaching out to them? Or do you just go for the ask and say, I have admired your work. You are the person I believe could help me step up my game to the next level? What are the barriers or the guidelines that you would give to someone saying, I know that person. I know who my sponsor I would like to be. Where do we begin creating that relationship if we don't know them? Or are you saying this person should already be in your life in some way?
No, a lot of times sponsors will, because they have already some experience with us as a professional. So a lot of times there are former managers, there are customers, there are folks who aren't our friends or family, but they know our body of work. There's a level of trust there. They know that when they invest in you or when they give you an opportunity or an introduction, you're not going to squander it. So there's a level of trust. Those relationships take a lot of time. So I look at my mentorship network, which is 18 different people. And my sponsors at the top level, they're the reason that I am where I am today for many, many, many reasons. And it took time. And it was a demonstration of when you invest in me, I'm going to work and I'm going to reply back and we're going to grow this so you keep investing in me. And it's not that formal. It's just this. So I like to tell, we meet with organizations a lot and HR loves to pair people and say, new person, meet this person that's been here a while because you're going to learn something. We can't manufacture mentorship. It has to be something where I want to invest in you and you want to learn from me. And that happens organically. So the great thing about the pop-up mentor model is we're teaching you who to look for and how to build those skills, but we're not teaching you who that person is.
I think what you said is so important, that trust is built over time.
Oh, yeah.
And we're in this microwave society where we see everyone's overnight success on social media, and we don't realize the hours, the hundreds of hours that it takes to build a really deep relationship that could sustain and hold something as time-consuming and as time-committed as mentorship.
Oh, yeah. I oftentimes will say to the members of our community that, sure, it looks right now like I am killing it, but killing it is an illusion that's based on years of hard work, failure, all the stuff that's not glamorous. So, it's like entrepreneurship, growing mentors and mentorship. It just takes time. And, you'll find the right people once you know where you're going.
I think that's a hard thing about entrepreneurship, too. I mean, if anyone told me how long that runway is, I feel like, okay, there's a runway and there's a curve and then there's another thing we didn't quite tell you about behind that secret door. I mean, I'm 5 years in now and it ain't no joke. But along with that, you also mentioned there's the 3 levels, the 6 different types of mentors. Is this based on the pain points or something different?
No, it absolutely is based on the pain points. So there are 6 different pain points in a career or a business. And it's when you want to be a leader. So that's not a skill that we often are taught anywhere. And so finding someone to mimic leadership styles, that's key in becoming a good leader. There are the two technical mentors. So there is one that you need that brings innovation. That's your horizon mentor. And then there's one that makes you an expert. That's your trailblazer mentor. And then you have someone who helps you grow. And they can help you grow like your revenue. They can help you grow your network. They're just very well connected, and they will give you tons of opportunity to meet others and grow. And then the last one I think is probably the most important, and that is your advocate. So your advocate helps you survive. So it is not your friends. It is not your family. It is someone who knows you as a professional and knows that you can do it. Because we all know, especially in entrepreneurship, you're going to have those days where you're just not sure what you're doing. And in the early days, it's all the time. And it's so important to have that person that just validates what you're doing, your vision, where you're headed. My advocate mentor is actually a peer from several jobs ago. And our careers took different paths. And she is the total opposite of me. But I love to watch her, and I greatly respect everything that she has accomplished. And anytime that I'm having a little bit of self-doubt, she just reminds me, you've done way more than this before. You can get through this. And she's just a great person to have and remind me that I'm totally talented and I'm capable and I'll make it happen.
Yeah, talking about self-doubt, because that's such a thing that stops us in our tracks. You had written that it took you 38 years to figure out your why. You're ahead of me by 10 years. And 2 years to learn that you were worthy. Can you talk a little bit more, Stacy, about that? This idea of I am worthy of even asking for mentorship.
Yeah. So I think a piece of I am worthy came from the line that started the company was, I've never met a woman I couldn't learn from. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's such an empowering statement. But it all came from overcoming my insecurity. So I didn't think I was worthy of experienced people to give me what they had. And so I had to flip in my head the mindset that the ask, like you were saying before, the ask is really hard. I had to view it as every person has a gift for me, and it's my role to be daring enough to go ask for what it is.
Can you remember, I wish it was this easy, what the thought was that you had to flip that switch to, if not now, when? If not me, who? This idea, because this is the one struggle that I hear with so many women. But it's the thing, I believe, between those that do and those that don't. Getting over this idea of we have worth, we have a lot to share, doesn't mean we're better than anyone else, not at the expense of anybody else. Can you think or go back to what it was that helped you flip that switch over?
Yeah, so it was pain. So it was innovation by pain, honestly. I knew that I needed a mentor because that's how I had gotten every role. And I actually saw my current job coming to an end in many ways. I just felt like I was being closed out of the organization. And I didn't have in my life at that point someone who would tap me on the shoulder and say, come with me. So I started mentor dinners in Charlotte, and that was 3 years ago. And it was just I wanted the most successful women in Charlotte to know who I was. So I was going to give them the stage, a microphone, and an audience to share the dirt about their careers, because I wanted somebody on that stage to tap me on the shoulder and to say, come with me. Well, what happened from that actually was I realized what my gifts were, and collectively, all of them taught me who I was going to be and what my passion and purpose were. So it wasn't like an overnight thing. But the first mentor dinner.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because, we're seeing you now like 2 years
Yeah.
later. What was it? What were your feelings? Do you remember what you felt like when those doors opened or the table was set? You're like, oh my God, will anybody show up?
Okay, so it's crazy because the first 3 women who I asked to be on that panel, actually at that time, I asked them to each give a presentation. They all said yes. So it was a local congresswoman, which I was no one. Like, she had no reason to invest in me at that point. But she was like, oh, yep, I'll do it. And our topic of that first event was finding your voice. And the reason it was called Finding Your Voice is I was terrified to public speak. And I was actually looking for my own voice. So I was, my role in that point in my life was I was the head of engineering for a manufacturing company. And I was the only female of my age in the organization. So I was trying to find my authentic leadership voice in that space. So I was like, well, I'll learn something, I'll get over a fear, and perhaps I'll meet my next boss. But I had no idea I would find my life's work in that and just continue to pursue it. So it's been an incredible journey. I don't know. And, when we talk about how scary entrepreneurship is, had I known the road ahead, I probably never would have ventured down it. It's really, really difficult, but so worthwhile.
We've spoken about this yesterday, and I'm the same. It's like, sometimes I just wish someone would tell me where to be and what to do. But I know that would last maybe a week. And they'd be like, okay, get me back to that other life that I have no idea where it's going to go, but at least I have a hold of the reins.
Yeah, you become kind of addicted to the unknown, which is kind of fun too.
Now, you had mentioned the first 3 women said yes. What advice do you give to the listeners? Because there are going to be many no's along the way. And it's often nothing to do with us, that maybe it's just the wrong time, wrong moment, wrong person. How do we not take the no's personally when we're reaching out for a mentor?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult I think approaching it as everyone has something to offer, then you know that there is a yes out there for you. And so that was kind of my technique. But I do think about it a lot. Had I gotten a no in the first, 5 emails or blind cold calls that I did, things may have been different. And so I think that's important for us as people who are being approached to remember that it's important to continue to fuel and ignite these little pilot lights of entrepreneurship and creativity and innovation and, fuel them as much as you can.
I love that. But with that, Stacy, to fuel the next generation, the pilot lights, no one teaches us also how to be a mentor. What makes a good mentor?
So it's interesting. I recently have done a lot of presentations and work around what's the difference between a coach and a mentor. And I think that's important. So a mentor is someone who is sharing their life experiences unfiltered. It's very much, there's no process. It's just, this is what I learned. And it's on us to figure out how to use it, if it's applicable, or to disregard whatever it might be. But a coach may not have the experience of being where you want to go, but they have a process that helps you grow and get over something. And so I think it's interesting, going back to your question, like, do you have something to overcome? Are you, is there some baggage that you need to get through first? Then you probably need a coach. A mentor is great when you know where you're headed and you just want some unfiltered, honesty. You want the dirt and you don't want to make the same mistakes as somebody that you respect.
Yeah, I think it's a great differentiation. Now, we both agree that the path to building our business is not easy. And, it's been so oversaid that we learn from our failures, but we don't learn from the wins. We can celebrate the wins, but we learn from the failures. Has there been something unexpected, a challenge that's come up for you in the past 2 years in your newer part of what you're evolving and creating that changed you in some way, or even your idea of how you wanted to evolve the business? Something unexpected that came to you through a challenge?
Well, it was probably the biggest one. Was when I started, I thought that the community and the membership would be a replacement for corporate salary, and that was not the case. So, the need to make money and to have a sales pipeline and to be very structured and disciplined. We talked about discipline before the interview started, being very focused on, there are metrics and you need to be able to make a sale every day in order to keep this going. And so I start every morning by making a sale. And I think that is great advice for entrepreneurs, because you will spend a lot of time thinking about your followers and your social media posts and all of these things that look like the right things to do. But if you're not out there actually making a sale, then you're not going to be able to keep the lights on.
Yeah, we both love Seth Godin, and he's
Yeah.
often reminding us, which metrics are you measuring?
100%.
Are they the right ones? Now, you shared before that we need, okay, I'm doing the math here. I've never been great at math. We need 6 different types of mentors, and there's 3 levels. So that's 18.
Right.
That's like a lot of people. Can you find more than one type of mentor in a person?
Oh, 100%. And I think that just knowing that you'll need these needs. Like, so you'll need somebody when you begin, lead, expert, innovate, grow, or survive. So yes, there could be the same face in a few of those boxes. But the other thing to think about is anytime your next changes, so anytime your vision for whatever you're going to, those people may no longer be the people you need in your mentorship network. So the idea is it's constantly changing, and you're constantly looking for more data to help you get to that next place.
Yeah, and we have to be reliant on ourselves to pause and check that the direction we're going in is still the direction we want to be going in. I don't think we do that enough.
Oh, no, especially as an entrepreneur, because you're a one-person show, and you're going, 150 miles an hour every day.
I could talk about this forever, but what is one last piece of advice, Stacy, you could give to the listeners to help this? The name of this podcast is Live Your Yes Life Now. Mm-hmm. What is one piece of advice you could give to the people listening to just say yes and go and do the ask and step up, even though we both have said how scary it is?
Yeah, so about a year into my entrepreneurship journey, I took a part-time job because I needed the money, and I wasn't giving up on the dream, but I needed the money, and I had to learn to forgive myself for working in someone else's dream while I was building my own. And I think we are so, it's either all in or not, and it doesn't have to be like that. As long as you know what your destination is, the timeline to get there can vary. That doesn't matter because you know where you're going. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, it's going to happen. So I think it's very important to give yourself, grace and permission to take it slow when you need to, because you'll get there.
That is so powerful. Thank you for being so honest. I think so many of us are sold the idea that you got to do it your way. And trust me, people, it crossed my mind last week to go and get a job at Trader Joe's.
Oh my gosh. Once a week, I'm looking at what jobs are available because I don't know if I'm doing the right thing.
I'm not alone. So thank you. Where can we stay in touch with you? Where can the listeners find more of you once they end this podcast?
Yeah, I would love to help your listeners out. So the pop-up mentor model is actually available online. So it's a course where you're walking through who are these people in your life? Where are they? What do we need? What to ask? And so that is available at pinkmentornetwork.com. I'm on Instagram at Pink Mentor Network. My personal mentor, which I know you were my personal Instagram is Grandma Kansas, which is a big story, and I'd be happy to share it with any of your listeners. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Stacy Cassio. It's StacyCassio.
And we'll have all those links in the show notes. Stacy, thank you for the gift of your time. And just like you're saying, there has never been a woman we couldn't learn from. We certainly all learned so much from you today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.